$500,000. That is the number sitting in John's accounts this morning. He is 52 years old. He drives a paid-off sedan. He just crossed $500,000 in net worth. But here is what nobody tells you about $500,000. It is the single most dangerous number in your entire financial life. And by every visible measure, John finally made it. Not the smallest, not the biggest, the most dangerous. Because $500,000 is big enough to make you feel rich, and small enough that one wrong move erases a decade. John's co-worker Carla hit the same number 18 months ago. Today, Carla is back under $300,000. Same income, same starting point. One of them protected it. One of them destroyed it. The difference was not luck. It was not the market. It was a handful of quiet decisions made in the first 90 days. Run the numbers, and the gap will follow them both for 30 years. And by the end of this, you will know exactly which side of that gap you are standing on. Most people treat $500,000 like a finish line. They have been grinding for years. The account finally shows 6 figures with the comma in a brand new place. So they exhale, they relax, they celebrate, and that exhale is exactly the problem. Here's the part nobody mentions out loud. At $500,000, the math of your life secretly flips. For your entire working life, your paycheck did the heavy lifting. You saved, you added, your contributions built the pile, dollar by dollar. But somewhere around this number, that quietly reverses. Your money starts earning more than you can possibly save. At a 6% return, $500,000 generates $30,000 a year. If you save $10,000 a year, your portfolio now out-earns your savings 3 to 1. At 8%, it throws off $40,000 a year while you sleep. That is the inflection point. The moment your money becomes the main worker and you become the supervisor. And almost nobody changes their behavior to match it. They keep acting like the saver. 40% of households earning over $500,000 a year still feel like they are living. They never start acting like the owner, paycheck to paycheck. That is not a typo. 40% of them. The number on the screen does not protect you. Your decisions protect you. So before you spend a single dollar of it, here is what the data actually shows. Let's meet both people properly, because honestly, their story is your story. John is 52 years old. He is a project manager. He earns $94,000 a year. Nothing flashy about him at all. He has been investing since his early 30s. Boring index funds, mostly. Automatic transfers he set up once and then forgot existed. His house is 60% paid off. His car has 110,000 miles on it. And 3 months ago, his combined net worth crossed $500,000 for the very first time. John felt it instantly, that quiet, glowing pride, the sudden temptation to finally relax and enjoy it. He stared at the number for a long time that night. Here is what John's $500,000 was actually made of, because the mix matters more than the total. About $220,000 sat in his retirement accounts, the 401k and the IRA. Roughly $180,000 was home equity, real but locked inside the walls of his house. Another $70,000 lived in a taxable brokerage account. And just $30,000 sat in plain cash. 4 very different kinds of money, 4 very different rules. John understood that distinction on day one, and it shaped every move he made. Most people see one big number and treat it like one big checking account. It is not. The shape of your $500,000 decides what you can safely do with it. Knowing your own mix is the first quiet move before any of the other 6. Carla is 32 years old. She is sharp, ambitious, and frankly, she earns more than John does. $112,000 a year in marketing. She hit $500,000 18 months ago, a full 20 years younger than John. She started investing early too. On paper, Carla was winning by every single measure that matters. The first $100,000, the part Charlie Munger called the hardest money you will ever make. She had already done the hard part, was years behind her. She had every reason in the world to feel safe. And that feeling of safety is exactly what cost her. Then the number did something to her. $500,000 felt like permission. Permission to upgrade. Permission to stop watching the account so closely. The week after she crossed it, Carla leased a brand new car. $800 a month. Then she moved into a nicer apartment on her own. Another $600 a month over her old place. Small treats slowly became normal treats. A weekend trip here. A small renovation there. A nicer phone, a better gym, dinners out 4 nights a week. None of it ever felt reckless to her. Each decision on its own felt completely earned. Because in a way, it genuinely was. She really had earned it. That is the trap. The trap never looks like a trap from the inside. She did not lose her $500,000 in one dramatic crash. But here is what Carla never saw coming. Nobody ever does. She lost it in $1,400 a month of brand new fixed costs. She lost it by selling investments to fund the lifestyle, then paying short-term capital gains taxes on every single sale. That is the myth we all quietly believe. She lost it by stopping her contributions, right at the exact moment her money was finally big enough to compound on its own. 18 months later, between the spending, the taxes, and a market dip she panic sold straight into, Carla was back under $300,000. $200,000 gone. Not stolen by anyone, just spent, taxed, and quietly abandoned. And the scary part is that she still cannot point to the day it happened. There was no day. There was only a slow leak she never noticed. Let's put Carla's $200,000 loss under a microscope because the breakdown is the lesson. The new car and apartment added about $16,800 a year in fresh fixed costs. Over 18 months, that alone was roughly $25,000 she used to invest and now did not. She sold around $80,000 of investments to fund the upgrades and the trips, and short-term capital gains taxes skimmed close to $12,000 off the top. Then the panic sale during the dip locked in a paper loss of nearly $60,000 that would have recovered. Add the contributions she stopped making, and the growth all of it would have earned, and the $200,000 hole writes itself. No single line looks fatal. Together, they are a slow-motion demolition. That is exactly why it never felt like a mistake while it was happening. John faced every single one of those same temptations, the same number on his screen, the same warm pride, the same little voice whispering that he had finally made it. But John did 6 specific things in his first 90 days. None of them were complicated. None of them required a financial advisor or some secret strategy. And those 6 quiet decisions are the entire difference between a number that grows for 30 years and none of them cost more than a single afternoon. A number that slowly bleeds out. Let's walk through all 6, exactly as he did them. Let's keep this fair. Carla is not reckless. She is not stupid in the slightest. She did what feels natural to almost everyone who hits this milestone. That is exactly why it is so dangerous. The destruction of $500,000 never feels like destruction. So before you ever get there, or if you happen to be standing on it right now, here is exactly what to do the moment your net worth hits $500,000. It feels like a reward you are finally collecting, and exactly what most people do instead. Here is what nobody tells you about the first 90 days. The most important move is the one that feels like doing nothing at all. You lock your monthly spending at the exact level that got you here in the first place. You freeze your lifestyle, not the level you can now afford. This is the single decision Carla got wrong, and it is the one John got right. The level that built the number. The reason is simple, brutal math. Every new fixed cost you add at this stage is paid for twice. Once when you spend it, and once in everything that dollar would have become. A single $50,000 bump in yearly spending, invested instead at 7% for 20 years, grows into roughly $2 million. Read that again slowly. $2 million. That is the true price of lifestyle creep at this level. It does not feel like $2 million. It feels like a nicer car and a bigger apartment. So John kept his old car. He kept his old apartment. For 90 days, he changed absolutely nothing about how he lived. He let the milestone be a number, not a green light. And her $1,400 a month of new fixed costs will quietly cost her well over a... Carla did the exact opposite. $1 in lost compounding. Boring? Completely. Effective? You have no idea. Here is the move most people skip entirely. The day you hit $500,000 is the worst possible day to stop contributing. You keep feeding the machine, and yet that is exactly when most people choose to do it. They think the pile is big now, it can grow on its own, I have earned a little break. Your contributions and your compounding are about to work together for the very first time. Stopping now is like pushing a boulder 90% up a hill and then sitting down to rest. The math says the exact opposite. John kept his automatic transfers running, completely untouched. $600 every 2 weeks straight into index funds. That automation is the quiet engine of the whole thing because it removes willpower from the equation entirely. He never even saw the money leave his account. You cannot spend what you never see. Carla turned hers off to fund the new lifestyle. One toggle flipped from on to off. That single switch cost her more than the car and the apartment combined because it stole both the contributions and all the growth those contributions would have earned for 30 years. Keep feeding it. The machine is finally strong enough to reward you for it. Here is the tax trap that quietly eats your gains alive. At $500,000, taxes stop being a footnote at the bottom of a page. They become a real recurring leak in the bottom of the boat. Carla sold investments she had held for only a few months. That means short-term capital gains, taxed as ordinary income, at her full marginal rate. On a $10,000 gain, that can mean $3,000 handed straight to the government. $3,000 on a single sale that one extra month of patience would have shrunk dramatically. When John needed cash, he sold only positions he had held for longer than 1 full year. John did it completely differently. That drops the rate to 0, 15, or at most 20%. He also maxed out his tax-advantaged accounts first, the 401k and the IRA, before touching a single taxable dollar. Same sale, same dollars, wildly different tax bill, because every dollar in those accounts grows shielded from this leak entirely. And one more thing almost everyone forgets completely: state taxes. California and New York charge some of the highest capital gains rates in the entire country. A move that looks perfectly smart at the federal level can still spring a leak at the state level. It is just part of the job of owning $500,000. Here is what almost nobody does at $500,000 but absolutely should. At this number, tax strategy is not optional anymore. You protect it. Not with some exotic product a salesman pushes across a desk at you. With the boring legal basics. Carla had no will, no updated beneficiaries, no plan at all for the $200,000 she still had left. If something had happened to her, a court would have decided everything. John spent one single afternoon and a few $100s fixing all of it. He wrote a simple will. He updated the beneficiaries on every account, so the money skips probate entirely and goes straight to the people he chose. He checked that his insurance actually matched his new net worth. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to say out loud. Dying without a plan means a probate court decides who raises your children and who gets your assets. Not you, a stranger in a robe working from a default the state wrote decades ago. At $500,000, you are no longer too small to bother planning. You are exactly big enough to lose it badly. An afternoon of paperwork protects a decade of saving. There is no better hourly rate in all of personal finance, and it is not even close. Here is the rebalance that nobody tells you about, and it cuts in both directions. At this milestone, two opposite mistakes destroy the number. The first is getting too aggressive. Individual stocks, crypto, a friend's can't-miss deal, options you do not really understand. You take a pile that took 20 years to build and you gamble with it like it grew. Suddenly you feel rich, so you start to chase. On a tree. The second mistake is the quiet one, and it is the one Maya made. Maya hit $500,000 and got absolutely terrified of losing it. So she moved almost all of it into a high-yield savings account, earning maybe 4%. Safe, right? Not even close. At 4% after inflation and taxes, Maya is barely standing still. Over 30 years, that fear could quietly cost her more than any market crash ever would. She traded real growth for the feeling of safety, and that feeling is brutally expensive. John did neither thing. He simply rebalanced back to his original target, a sensible mix of stocks and bonds, matched to a 52-year-old's timeline. He sold a little of what had grown too big, bought a little of what had shrunk, not a casino, not a mattress, and reset the whole thing. It is about refusing to let fear or greed pick your allocation for you. Here is the emotional trap that destroys the number faster than any market ever could. Rebalancing is not about predicting the future. It is the danger zone, and it lives entirely between your ears. $500,000 is the most psychologically dangerous wealth level there is. It is big enough to make you feel like the work is finally over, and small enough that the work absolutely is not. This is exactly where panic selling lives. Carla watched the market dip 10%, saw $50,000 vanish on paper in a single week. She locked in a loss that the market quietly erased just 4 months later, and sold everything to stop the pain. The $50,000 was never really gone. She made it gone by selling. John felt the exact same fear in the exact same week. He looked at the same red numbers on the same screen. He did the exact same math. And then he did nothing, completely on purpose. Doing nothing, when nothing is the right move, is the single hardest skill in all of investing. The number is not the prize. The behavior is the prize. Most people upgrade their lifestyle and downgrade their discipline at the precise moment they should be doing the exact opposite. Here's the one number that quietly changes the way you should see every part of this. Guard your behavior, and the number guards itself, the inflection point. For your whole life until now, you were the engine. Your salary, your saving, your discipline drove everything forward. You were the one doing all the work. But at $500,000 earning 8%, your money now generates $40,000 a year entirely on its own, without you lifting a single finger. That is more than most people manage to save in an entire year of hard work. Sit with that for a real second. Your money is now a better earner than you are. This is the single most important shift to understand, because it quietly changes the entire game you are playing. Below this number, your job was to save aggressively and build the pile. Above it, your job is to protect what is now doing the heavy lifting for you. Carla kept playing offense with money that was begging her to play defense. John switched roles at exactly the right time. He stopped trying to be the hero of the story. He let his money be the hero instead, and he became its bodyguard. That switch from saver to protector is the entire secret of the second half of the wealth game. Here is the trap nobody warns you about, and it has nothing to do with spreadsheets. And almost nobody makes it on purpose. It is the people around you. The moment your friends sense you have money, the invitations change. The nicer trips, the group dinners where your share keeps climbing. Carla felt all of it, and she said yes to almost all of it. The investment a buddy swears is a sure thing, because saying no felt like admitting she was still struggling. John felt the same pressure and learned to say a quiet, simple no. He understood that other people will happily spend your $500,000 for you if you let them. Not a dramatic no, just a calm one. Nobody guards your number but you. The hardest part of new wealth is not earning it. It is staying boring while everyone around you begs you to celebrate. Protect the number from the room, not just from the market. Here's what John did that honestly felt like a step backward. Most people at this milestone keep almost nothing in plain savings because cash feels lazy when investments are climbing. He built a wall of cash, but John set aside 6 months of expenses in a simple high-yield account. That cash buffer is the exact thing that let him do nothing when the market dipped. Carla had no buffer at all, so when one surprise expense hit during the downturn, she was forced to sell investments at the worst possible moment, locking in losses she never had to take. Not as an investment, as armor. The cash was not there to grow. It was there so John would never be forced to sell in a panic. A boring emergency fund is what makes brave investing possible. At this level, it is what protects the wealth you already built. Here is the decision that trips up almost everyone at exactly this stage. The buffer is not the opposite of building wealth. Do you finally hire a financial advisor? A polished advisor in a sharp suit promising to manage it all for you. And here is the honest truth most channels will not tell you. You probably do not need one to do the 6 boring things on this list. John handled his own first 90 days with a will template, an index fund, and a calm head. But if your situation is genuinely complex, a real estate portfolio, a business, a blended family, at $500,000 the calls start coming, then a good fee-only advisor can absolutely earn their keep. The danger is the other kind, the one paid by commission, who sells you a high-fee product you never needed. A 1% annual fee on $500,000 is $5,000 a year, every year, compounding against you for decades. Carla almost signed with one out of pure overwhelm. The lesson is simple. Help is fine. Just never confuse a salesperson with an advisor. Know what you are paying and know exactly what you are paying for. Here is the whole thing in one breath, because simple is what survives. Freeze your lifestyle at the level that built the number. Keep your automatic contributions running, no matter how big the pile gets. Mind your taxes, hold longer than a year, and use your sheltered accounts first. Protect the money with a will, beneficiaries, and the right insurance. Rebalance back to a sane allocation, not too greedy and not too scared. And whatever the market does, refuse to panic sell. 6 moves. None of them flashy, all of them quiet. That is the entire playbook John used. And it is the same playbook every quietly wealthy person uses without ever bragging about it. The magic was never in the moves. The magic was in actually doing them while everyone else celebrated. Here is the question that quietly reframes everything, and almost nobody stops to ask it. What is this money actually for? Carla never answered that question. So her $500,000 had no job, no purpose, no destination. And money with no job always gets spent. It is that simple. John answered it on day 1. His number was for freedom at 65, not for a nicer car at 52. Once the money had a clear job, every single decision got easier. A new lease? That hurts the job. Panic selling? That hurts the job. Staying boring? That serves the job. Here is a number worth burning into memory. A portfolio can safely support withdrawals of roughly 4% a year for life. $500,000 at 4% is $20,000 a year, forever, without ever touching the principal. That is what the number is really worth, not a shopping spree. A salary that never clocks out. Give your money a job, and it stops slipping through your fingers. Here is the mistake even genuinely smart people make at this level. $500,000 in net worth is not $500,000 sitting in a checking account. They confuse net worth with cash. A huge chunk of it is usually locked inside a house, a retirement account, or investments you really should not casually sell. Carla forgot this completely. She spent against a number she could not actually touch without taxes or penalties, and that gap is a big part of how she bled out. John knew exactly what was liquid and what was not. He knew his house equity was real wealth but terrible spending money. He knew his 401k was growing but locked away until retirement. So he only ever spent from the small, deliberate buffer he had set aside. Net worth is the scoreboard. Cash flow is the actual game. Confuse the two and you will feel rich while quietly going broke. Always know the difference between what you own and what you can truly spend. Here's what the next 30 years actually looks like for these two people, side by side. John keeps his $500,000 invested, keeps adding his $15,000 a year. 30 years from now, he is sitting on roughly $5.5 million and earns a boring 7%. He did nothing clever. Carla, back at $300,000, stops contributing and keeps dipping in to cover her higher lifestyle. 30 years from now, she has maybe $700,000, if she is lucky and disciplined from here. He just refused to interrupt the compounding. Same starting line. That entire gap was created in the first 18 months after each of them hit $500,000. A gap of nearly $5 million, not over 30 years. In 18 months. The early decisions do not just matter a little. That is the real weight of this moment, and almost nobody feels it while it is happening. They set the trajectory of everything that follows. So here is the part nobody really wants to hear. It is the exact spot on the track where most people stop running. They see the big round number, they feel the wave of relief, and they mistake the halfway point for the end of the race. But the second half is where the real wealth is actually built, because that is where compounding finally does far more than you ever could. $500,000 is not the finish line. The cruel irony of the whole thing is this. The people most likely to destroy $500,000 are not the careless ones. They are the proud ones, the ones who earned it, who feel they truly deserve to relax, who treat the milestone as a reward to spend instead of a responsibility to protect. Carla earned every single dollar of her $500,000, and she still lost $200,000 of it, not to a crash, not to a scam, but to a feeling. The feeling that she had finally arrived. But he understood the one thing that made all the difference in the world. The day you hit $500,000 is not the day you start spending like a wealthy person. John earned his the same slow, boring way. It is the day you start thinking like one. And wealthy people are boring with money on purpose. They freeze their lifestyle. They automate their saving. They mind their taxes. They protect their assets. They refuse to panic. And then they let the machine run for 30 quiet years. None of it is exciting. All of it is the difference. So if you ever see that number land in your own account, do not celebrate it by spending. Because the most dangerous moment in your entire financial life is the exact moment you finally feel safe. Celebrate it by protecting. If this showed you something you did not know was happening with your own money, we break down the hidden math behind the financial decisions you face every single day. And the next time someone tells you that $500,000 means you have made it, subscribe to Desmond Wealth and hit the notification bell. Ask them one simple question. Made it to where? Because $500,000 is not a destination at all. What you do in the first 90 days after you walk through it decides whether the number grows. It is a doorway, quietly for 30 years, or disappears quietly in 18 months. And make the decision that matches your reality, not the feeling that you have finally arrived. So do the math. Protect the milestone. The number will never protect you. Only your next decision can.